Okay, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the internet's number one success podcast, Into the Mind, where we break down and analyze the characteristics, strategies, and stories of successful entrepreneurs, investors, and high achievers so that together we can learn from their mistakes, be inspired by their victories, and replicate their formulas for success. I'm your host, Marlon Johnson, former parkour athlete turned real estate investor and entrepreneur, and I am on a mission to help 7.8 billion people improve their personal, professional, and financial lives by empowering their mindsets and connecting them to the right people. Today, we have a guest who has an impressive resume. He's the founder of the fastest growing real estate brokerage, EXP, which as of today has over a $1.8 billion market cap. And in just over a decade, they've grown their team to over 73,000 agents worldwide, operating in 19 countries, and have attracted some major players to their brokerage, like the Cordones. Not only has our guest ushered in the future of realty by being a totally virtual brokerage, he's also acquired Success Magazine in December of 2020 and has formed a partnership with Viome, a company that's becoming a global leader in the longevity space by using AI-driven technology to restore balance to your microbiome health. Today, we're going to talk about his journey into real estate as a new agent, transformation from an agent to a CEO, his acquisition of Success Magazine, and his partnership with Viome. So help me in welcoming the man that has taken the real estate industry by storm, Glenn Sandford. Glenn, welcome to the show.
Hey, Marlon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. I was honored to have gotten to meet you at the Stages event out in Arizona, and you were just a very approachable guy. I actually had no clue who you were when I first met you. I just noticed that you happened to be wearing a Whoop, and that made me want to spark the conversation because I had just purchased mine and was curious. So today we don't have a lot of time, but I want to jump into things, which, I want to jump into how you entered into the real estate industry because you had a pretty interesting, you kind of wandered into the real estate space in your mid 30s and you weren't really looking to be a real estate agent. So can you tell the audience how you got into real estate?
Yeah. I've been in the business now just over 20 years. I got licensed in April of 2002, and I'd come out of technology. I'd been in sales, and internet marketing was a big part of my sort of background pre real estate. And in 2002, I had a couple websites that I was doing, community based portals for the local community. So I was, basically had directories of businesses, and I had banners sort of that people could sponsor for business categories and events and activities and things. And I'd actually done it for the Chamber of Commerce. They had actually decided to go a different direction, so I ended up. It was my site that I had shared with the chamber about 4 or 5 years prior. So I had a site with a lot of traffic, but not a major focus other than it was just had a bunch of traffic around community. So I just started to think about how can I maybe sell some ads to some other businesses, generate some income. And one of the people that I sold an ad to was a local realtor. He at the time didn't. His email actually didn't work. He was 63. I was 35. I sent him another email maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. It bounced again. I finally called him on the phone and said, "I'm trying to send you an email. Your email doesn't work." He told me that his email hadn't worked, which for me just was mind-boggling that a real estate agent could run a business and not have an email that worked. But for whatever reason, his didn't. I said, "Well, let me fix it because I want to get you this email." I called a couple of people, figured out how to get his email fixed, and then he decided that he'd hire me. And then a couple months later, he decided that he was tired of paying me $60 an hour to do website development work, and I needed to get my real estate license. So he kind of decided. I say he decided. He said, "Glenn, you need to get your real estate license." He said, "I need a real estate license like I need a hole in the head." And he said, "Well, what's it going to take?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Guarantee me $3,000 a month," expecting him to not to turn me down. And he said, "Fine." And I was like, "Crap." And then he literally said, and then I said, "Well, um, I'm not going to go wear my realtor pin at the grocery store. I'm not going to go talk to my friends and family. I'll build an online practice and work with clients that I meet online." And he said, "Fine, fine, fine, fine." And then, but probably a month later, he asked me why I didn't have my real estate license yet. And I said, Hugh, I get paid $60 an hour to do website development work. And Hugh said, I'll pay you $60 an hour, go study for your darn license. And so he paid me, $60 an hour. I got to study for my real estate license. And so that's how I got into real estate. And I was really focused on the internet, because was my, I call them business constraint, but that was my big business constraint, was to focus on online lead gen and then convert those leads to clients. And I was very successful. I ended up rookie of the year, my first full year in the business, actually that year through the end of the year, first full year, the 2003, I was the number 3 agent in the office, number 1 buyer's agent in the office. And 2004, moved to Keller Williams, and by 2006, my 4th full year in the business, I was in the top 50 nationally with Keller. So that was kind of my early days in the business, but it was really focused around internet lead gen, converting those leads to closed transactions using my internet marketing background combined with some business background and some sales background. And I was kind of a perfect place, perfect time for my skill set at the time. So that's how I got in, and it's been a bit of a rocket ride ever since.
Yeah, I'm always curious too, because I listened to your story about how Hugh got you into real estate. I'm just curious, what was it that he saw in you? Why was he willing to pay you to go and get your license? Like, why was he so adamant about you actually joining on that team and becoming an agent?
Yeah, I mean, I'd already developed a fairly solid understanding of both who I was, where I was going, and what sort of value I could bring to a relationship. So I was pretty, I mean, you call it confidence around that, and so I think he recognized that I wasn't telling him or sharing him with ideas that didn't work. In fact, I worked for him for a couple months, and so he started to generate leads on his website, and that really kind of predicated his need for somebody to work those leads, because he liked to say he goes out where the houses and the people are, and so that was his thing. And so he had this suburban, he'd be out all day, but he sold 93 properties by himself without an assistant a year. So he was a high producing agent. And so the internet leads just did, in his mind, was something he didn't understand, and he probably wouldn't spend the time really processing them. So he now recognized that he had a need, but he also was a mentor. He had mentored some agents before me. After I came in, he continued to mentor a number of agents. So he had a desire to give back and to help the next generation of agent. And so he saw, one, I was solving a need, 2, I was hungry, and 3, he wanted to be a mentor anyway.
Wow, that's powerful, and that's something that you carried with you into EXP. So before we get into that, something else, you stated that back in the 2005 2006 in Keller Williams, you were among their top 50. You and your team did, I believe, somewhere in excess of $70 million in production, and at that point, that's what most people would consider being a top producer, right? I guess, like, my question is that, being at that stage as a producer, what caused you to want to go and build EXP? What caused you to want to go out and, most people would be comfortable there?
Yeah. Well, one, I kept on asking myself some basic questions, which was, for those who are in real estate or have thought about their real estate business, or, and currently we're going through a bit of a challenging time in the housing industry, especially. I recognize that there's a difference between actually owning a business and a business owning you. And so as a real estate agent, you're sort of sold by the sales manager, the broker owner, the team leader, that you're going to own a business. In fact, one company says, business is worth owning. That's part of their sort of one of their taglines, like, have business is worth owning. But it's kind of a misconception, because it's really smoke and mirrors, because you do not have a business you own. Because the minute you stop picking up the phone and prospecting and putting clients in your car or driving over and taking a listing, you're out of business. And so that's not really a business that you own. That's a business that owns you. And I recognized very early on that that even when I was at that level of production, Keller, I think I did 60 million in 2006 in production, 73 in 2007, and we were on track to do about 100 million in 2008. And I was running an independent brokerage even at that point in time. But I recognized that without me even running a team or even the team-based brokers that I had, that it was still heavily dependent on my ability to motivate and train and support and keep people sort of on the right seat on the bus and all of that. There's not as much margin in real estate as one would expect, especially as you start to scale. And for me, I wanted to get to a place where I actually owned a business. And I was having good months, like 2007. I think I was making 50,000-60,000 a month, sort of on a net basis, which is 2007. That was a lot of money then. I mean, that's probably something akin to 100,000+ a month today. So it'd be kind of equivalent to a low seven-figure net income. And that sounds like a lot. Until you actually start to realize that it's still 100% dependent on your ability to stay engaged. So unless you're putting money away into, other investments or starting other businesses or what have you, you still don't quite have a business. So for me, I kept on thinking, how do I create something that's sustainable, something that eventually somebody would be willing to run on my behalf and my income wouldn't go down, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what business ownership, in my opinion, looks like. And if it's set up right, then a business will actually grow even when you're no longer the face or the driver of that business. So that's where I wanted to get to, because that, in my mind, represented true financial freedom. Financial freedom doesn't exist until your passive income is higher than your expenses to live. And that's where when your passive income, and business ownership is a way to passive income over time once you can get all the pieces in place.
Right. And so essentially that's moving from the operator standpoint to the owner standpoint. You started to envision a business that ultimately allowed you to get your time back. And like you said, it would continue to grow without you. And I listened to an interview somewhere where you said, as you were beginning to conjure up EXP in your mind, you did something that I found to be pretty intelligent. You would actually start to ask other individuals in your industry what they saw as the future for your industry. So you would start to source ideas from these other agents, and you landed on this profit share model, a true profit share model, right? So how did you really figure to make that work? Because I think companies have tried that and it hasn't quite worked out as well as it's working right now with EXP.
Yeah. So, we built a revenue share model. So I would say that I was probably the one being asked about the future of real estate rather than the other way around, because I was a technology guy and I kind of sort of sucked in a lot of stuff. So I studied a lot, but in my mind, and I don't want to I'm not being critical of real estate agents in general, um, but I don't think most real estate agents are business people. Um, they, there's some things that they wanted, and some objections that I would continue to hear over and over about the various types of models that existed, whether it was at Keller or my real estate team or my real estate brokerage that I had prior to EXP. And then I also recognized, more importantly, was what needs weren't being solved for me in the current structure. And the reason why I refer to myself as a focus group of one, meaning that I'm always looking for what is it that currently isn't being solved for me, and there isn't a solution that's obvious in the marketplace. Believing that there's a whole bunch of me's out there that are having the same issue, and so when I think about a business, of any business, if I can identify a challenge that is like, I wish there was, and then identify that thing that you wish there was a solution. Obviously, you go, I wish there was, and you go, wow, I really do wish that I had that thing, whatever that is. first thing you do is you go to Google and you go, does it exist? Where do I get X, Y, and Z? And if it doesn't exist, then you start to go, okay, well, then you have to question is why doesn't it exist, and or why doesn't it exist in a way that actually works for me? And then you have to then ask, is there a big enough market for whatever that thing is? And so for me, the big thing was I was at Keller Williams. They had a profit share program that got me attracted to them. That's why I was there from 2004 to 2007. But the challenge with their model, and now I know you're in real estate in some capacity, but have you been an agent at all, Marlon?
No, I've purely been an investor doing renovations, buy and holds, things of that nature.
Okay. So, and the reason, so I wanted to kind of, from that perspective, so as a real estate agent, you quickly realize early in your career that if you're not selling, you're not making money, and there's no retirement plan in real estate. And so Keller introduced a concept called the profit share program. And basically they take a percentage of the profit at a local office level, and then they take up to half of that, and then they just share it, that profit, through a 7-level rev share or profit share program. So it's akin to network marketing. So we basically took their same 7 levels and said, hey, what if we get rid of that single biggest cost in running a real estate brokerage called a physical office, and what if we share that and share it off of revenue? So we share half of our dollars, gross dollars, back with our agents and brokers through our revenue share program. And that was for a couple of reasons. One, 2009 we started EXP Realty, so didn't really kind of share the history, but 2007 I started a company called Buyer Tours Realty. That was my independent team-based brokerage. We had a great 2007. We did about 73 million production, on track to do 100 million in 2008, and then the downturn took place. And I had 4 offices at the time, and we had to quickly close 3 offices down. Fortunately, we could. And then we went to a skeleton crew on the 4th. And then in early 2009, we started to come together and say, okay, what do we do now? Basically the market had fallen off a cliff in September of 2008. So September, October, November, December, January, February. So 6 months later, we all got together. And we said, what do we do now? How do we build? How do we continue to do stuff? And that was where I'd actually mentioned to one of our agents, because she was asking when we get our offices back. And I said, we're not getting our offices back. We need to build a defensible business model that's not dependent on bricks and mortar. Another business constraint that I put in place. And then I was thinking, well, it's a great idea. That's the future of real estate. And, today, 13 years later, I think the writing's on the wall for all kinds of businesses that they're going to be fully remote managed businesses. Even if there is work being done in real life, the reality is that we're becoming more and more remote in pretty much every business that exists. And so we said, that's the future. And if that's the future, and bricks and mortars cost a lot of money, then why don't we figure out a way to build a business that's not dependent on it? And so that then we said, okay, if we don't have offices, and real estate agents are, they're creatures of habit, and if they're used to going to an office, then we have to figure out a way to get them off center, to get them to actually be willing to go to using a cloud-based or virtual brokerage. And so we said, hey, if we turn profit share into revenue share, that would be a big reason why I would go there. And so that became kind of the initial virtuous flywheel that got us going. We started with 25 agents. We're 86,000 plus agents now in 22 countries. We're fastest growing real estate brokerage in the history of real estate. And so it's been a rocket ride.
Wow, you guys have grown extremely quickly, and you're still growing. So let me ask this, right? Because you do look at things from a business standpoint, and as a business, you're typically looking in longer time horizons. You recently acquired Success Magazine. What was the thought process behind acquiring Success and what you're doing with EXP? Is there a coupling of the two, or are these two totally independent ventures?
Yeah. So, Success Magazine it's a really neat publication. It's been around for over 125 years now. It was, and it's had every single personal development leader in the history of personal development pretty much been involved with it. Napoleon Hill, Og Mandino, um, Tony Robbins has been on the cover a bunch of times. Grant Cardone's been on the cover. I mean, it's got this huge list of people that have been associated with the brand over all of those years. It's if you learned sales in the 80s and 90s, you were either getting cassette tapes from Success Magazine or CDs, and you're putting it in your car and you're driving around with the car. So it's very formative for anybody in sales and marketing, and people that were personal development geeks or nerds. And I sort of put myself in that category. I've always been a bit of a geek of trying to tweak and understand and figure out how to be more successful by how you think, what you believe, and then how do you then put all that stuff into practice. And then there's the skills-based aspect of it as well. And so Success Magazine has been super formative there. So a number of years ago, we they wrote up EXP as an up-and-coming real estate brokerage, which was really cool because I thought Success Magazine is writing us up. And then I got to know the owner, and then he suggested that maybe we mail the magazine to all of our agents. He gave me a price that was super inexpensive. I thought there's no way you can actually do that, but turns out we could get magazines fully printed, complete with a wrap and other things, to our agents for like $3 per issue per agent. So it was pretty inexpensive. And so we started to mail it out. We became the largest single customer of Success Magazine. And then 2 years ago, I think it was, we were approached by I was approached by the owner a little over 2 years ago with the idea that he would like to sell the magazine. He thought that I would make a great owner. And I said, man, well, I'd never even thought of that. One, first, I'm honored. And then two, it's like, yeah, let's see how we can put this together. Because it's one of those, formative publications for anybody who's wanting to level up in areas of their life. So for me, that became kind of the stepping stone. Been almost exactly 2 years to the day that we've owned the magazine, and we've now added a whole bunch of other components to it that's really made it a neat ecosystem. We're building out a community. We got all kinds of cool stuff. And I've been working full time on the success side, or at least 80% of my time, 80% of my time on success, starting about 5-6 weeks ago. So we've been really starting to spin up a lot of really interesting future innovations for 2023.
Yeah, that's amazing. That has to be a dream come true, being someone that's constantly working on personal development. I mean, when I saw you in the stages room, I looked over and you constantly were in your notebook. I think you had like an electric iPad and you were just taking notes like nobody's business, so it shows that you're still a learner. And with success, you're introducing something called Success Health, right? And you all are partnering with Viome. And we're talking briefly about this, about what Viome's doing and what you've seen it do for yourself, as an athlete, as a runner,
Yeah.
in your body.
Yeah. So, one, I'm a bit of I mentioned a personal development geek. I'm also a bit of a biohacker. I went and done, tons of work. I went to Peter Diamandis' Platinum Longevity Retreat 2 years in a row, which is, still can't believe how much those retreats are, but they're not cheap. But they put us in the room with literally the best of the best of health and longevity. The doctors are off the chain. They're figuring out in the next 20 years, we're going to be able to effectively. The belief is that we'll be effectively able to stop aging as we know it. And so I got really excited about a number of things I saw last year at his retreat in September. And so one of them was Viome. And so I did the Viome test. I did the blood and I think it was blood and stool sample last year. And and it got my information. It actually told me what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat, and gave me some supplements. In fact, I've got just over here sitting in a box. I've got kind of my little. This is you might even see. Oops, you can't because it's my
Oh,
little
there we go.
screen
Yep.
deal. But it's got my name right on it. So these are supplements that are actually designed specifically for my microbiome. But in November, I got my results back from my test last year, and my biological age was 54. At the time, I was 55, and so I'm going, yay! I'm a little younger than my biological age, and I went on a regimen from November last year till late September when I did this test again. But I went on a regimen of Viome, intermittent fasting, fast mimicking diet, watching my sleep, doing a number of things, and then went back and did the test this year, and my biological age. So this is how my microbiome showing up compared to other people of similar ages. But my microbiome came back at 48 years old. So I reversed my age by 6 years. Biologically, based on the data that Viome was able to collect. So part of it was just, is gamifying one's health and being able to sort of see what's working, what's not working, what should I eat, what shouldn't I eat. And we even formed an affiliate relationship just recently with them. So you can even go to successhealth.com just as a domain name, and you can go and click in there. We've got kind of the best deal there is on Viome that exists right now in the marketplace. And you can actually get your full body intelligence and start to do the supplements and all that. And then we're actually building that out. We've just got a deal now with the Aura Ring we're about to roll out. So we just formed a relationship with them. We already do have a relationship with Whoop, though it's not on the website. And then we've got another company I'm hoping to put a relationship together with, which is Prolon, fast mimicking diet. So I think between all wearables, internal metrics, and then some tools for rapid improvement of health. For me, that plus putting together some sort of exercise regimen, it's a pretty comprehensive ability to start to manage your how fast you age. So that's kind of what I get really excited about, is how can we kind of manage that as best we can. There's a lot of science that now suggests that instead of treating age as inevitable, they're actually starting to think about treating age as a disease. And if age is a disease, then that means that aging is curable. And so that's kind of a cool way to look at things. So I'm like going, let's cure it. I don't mind being here for another 100 years.
So, I mean, I love that because I'm currently reading through Tony Robbins' latest book, Life Force. And, it really, you start to see the science that's coming out, and it's amazing. And, it's kind of funny. You just answered the question of, what does one do with their time after essentially you've taken care of the finances? Your business is effectively being able to run itself. It's gotten to that point of EXP being able to run itself. So it's cool to hear that you're essentially pursuing now more of a passion project. So what I'm curious to know is, as you've gone through these different developments through your own growth and you've gotten to a newer place, are you finding that there are habits that you incorporate now in your life and at this level that you could have incorporated earlier on? Or do you feel like it's important to go through every step and really adopt what you're supposed to adopt at those levels? In other words, if you could sit with yourself on a park bench 30 years ago, would you have given yourself any shortcuts, or do you feel you needed to go through everything?
Yeah. Well, one, I love one of Einstein's quotes is that the reason why time exists is because everything can't happen at once. So you think about the fact that there's but I was always I've always been intentional even from a very young age. So recognize. So here's the thing I had that really was going for me even from a very young age. I knew that it was possible to do well, to be successful. I knew it was. I knew it was possible, and I decided from a very young age that I would be successful. And I mention that because I think there's a lot of people who don't believe they can be successful. And then even though they believe, or they articulate the words, I can be successful. They don't believe it so fundamentally that they actually choose to be successful. And these, and so I was able to, at an early age, recognize that. So that kind of created my long-term intentionality around where I was going. So even when I started my first software company when I was 15 years old. So just to kind of give you a sense, like I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. For me, success was building a business that would ultimately take care of me and my family and those that I cared about. And so that became my first definition of success. And and so I was able to do that, and that became, sort of my long-term habit. That's now what I'm good at. I'm good at it, at building businesses. I'm good at doing this. In fact, it's went from being work to being something that I enjoy. It's now become almost um, my hobby is my work. Whereas for a number of years, even for me, um, work was work. Like it was not easy, getting through the other side because I'd never been there. I'd not got to the other side. I knew that I believed the potential of the work I was doing, but I hadn't achieved it. So, when you haven't quite achieved it, I mean, you're in there putting in the hours, not knowing if the payoff is going to be the payoff. But I was willing to do whatever it took in order to get to where I was going and to get whatever result life gave me as a result of pursuing it. So I had that kind of intentionality. So that got me to obviously something that eventually became worked. And in terms of, would have I done it differently? I don't think so. I think the moment you decide that you're going to be successful and that you're going to do the work necessary to be successful, then the things that you're going to do going forward become much more obvious, than if you sort of just, it's sort of like the difference between saying I'm going to lose weight and losing weight. They're two different things. Losing weight is an action that you do, and you make a sort of a primal determination around that. Wanting to lose weight, or I need to lose weight, or I'm thinking about losing weight, or I'm trying to lose weight is a loser's phrase. Like you either lose weight or don't lose weight. Now I know I'm using something that's probably a little bit personal to some people, because but I went through the same thing. 2019, I'll give you that example. I'll talk about weight specifically. I was 225 pounds. I was having some heart issues. I had things were going off the rails, but I'd let my health sort of go downhill, and I was trying to do the right things, but my weight kept on going up, and I still wasn't able to get the results I was looking for. And then when my heart thing went, and I had to go check in the hospital a couple of times and get the EKG, and then go in for different stuff. I decided I was going to lose weight and I was going to get healthy. And that led me eventually a year or so later, 2021, to go to Peter's longevity retreat. And this last year, the same thing. I decided to do the things that I had been putting off that were difficult, like things like cutting out red meat and dairy. Like if you like steaks and you like your cheese and you like your milk and you like your this and you like your that, and how many times do we sort of play the games? I'm just talking about myself, really, is how many times we play the game of, well, I don't really need to put it off. I can do that tomorrow. I can do that. I can cut it out tomorrow. I can cut it out next week, or hitting the gym or whatever. Like so many times we make excuses for not, or just, we don't do it. But if something critical happens, you can make the choice. So I made the choice on health. I made the choice on success. And so I recognized that, there's a choice that was made. And then once that choice is made and you're determined to see that choice all the way through, no matter the outcome, then all of a sudden the universe starts to line up on that choice to actually create the new reality that you're becoming, then you just continue down that path.
That's extremely powerful. Once you set up your mind, that's it. So, Glenn, I want to be very respectful of your time. I know you have to get running here. So, I have two final questions. Should take about 2 minutes here, because I do appreciate you being here right now. And this is my first question. This is selfishly how I build out my reading list. Um, I'm a big reader. I love reading books on personal development as well. Are there no more than two books? So 1 to 2 books, but you can't name more than two books that were total paradigm shifts for you, that after you read these books, your mind never quite went back to being the same?
Yeah, well, one of them was the psychology, or influence, the psychology of persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini. I think that's his name. So that was a huge paradigm shifting book. You wouldn't normally think about it as a personal development book. So if you haven't read it, but the piece in that book was, and the concept is, how do you create your own social proof? And even though he doesn't state that as the outcome, you recognize very quickly how you're being influenced without your permission and without your consent by all kinds of stuff around you. And so once you understand that, that was a huge paradigm shift for me. What would be another one that totally changed the game? Uh, there have been many books over the years. I would say the other book that was super formative for me was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. The um, you know I talked about intention, like what you have to have a bias for action. It's kind of the first part of that, and then begin with the end in mind. Where are you going? What is it that you're determined to do? And then how do you then get there, and how do you even how do you organize your thoughts, and how do you basically create a roadmap for getting there. So I think those would be two really great books, if you haven't read them, to add to your list.
I love that. So the influence of psychology and the 7 habits of highly successful people.
So the first one, influence, the psychology of persuasion. So
The
that's the
psychology of persuasion. Okay, I love it. And then this final question I have for you, this one's my favorite question. And I want you to imagine that tomorrow morning, Glenn, you wake up and you are a blank slate. You don't remember the last 2 decades. You don't remember the business acumen, the relationships you've built, the transformation of growing a company to being in 13 different countries. And it's all gone, right? And as you're coming to consciousness, as you're waking up, you start to have a thought. And this thought that comes to you, you accept it. There is no resistance. You believe it with full faith. And this first thought begins the everything else to come. Everything else is built on this first thought. What would you prefer for this thought to be?
um, well, I think all great thoughts, all great driver thoughts start with the words "I am." So and I hope that I say I'm awake, I'm alive, alert, and enthusiastic. That'd be a Dale Carnegie phrase, but that would be that would be the first thing, and then and then maybe let's go. So if I'm just coming to, it's like I'm alive, alert, enthusiastic, and let's go.
That's powerful. And I agree with you. Every morning I start my day off with my affirmations, and it's powerful. Some of the most powerful people I've met, the most influential people I've met, have told me that they have not abandoned their morning affirmations, and they've been doing them for decades now. So it's really cool to hear that your first thoughts would be, I am fill in the blank. So, Glenn, I have to say thank you so much for being here today. I truly appreciate it. I know the audience appreciates it as well. For the people that are wanting to figure out how to get in contact with you, maybe listen to more of your content, where's the best place that I should send them to? Like, what's the best way for you to have people engage?
Yeah, really, really easy. So this one, we're really excited about this, by the way. So definitely, every one of you that are on here, right after this, or as you're listening to it, type this into the URL bar on your browser. But we've just recently launched a Success Magazine Discord server. So we've got myself in there. We got Jarek Robbins, Tony Robbins' son. We've got a ton of coaches, trainers, and all kinds of people that are connected to personal development space. Aaron King, one of our podcasters, Tristan Almuda, all those folks. There's just a ton of resources, content, and conversations going on right now about being more successful. And our Discord server is located at Discord, discord.gg/success. So discord.gg/success. And if for those of you who are live, jump in there. I'll say hi to you real quick. And obviously, if you're watching this afterwards, just tag me somewhere on Discord and just let me know that you saw it here, so I can say hi to you as well. So we've got communities growing fast, and so thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So you all see that right there. Should be up on your screen. Go and check that Discord out. I'm actually excited to hear about that. I didn't know that was a thing, so I'm going to be jumping in, checking that out right after we get off this call here. And Glenn, again, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you again in another room.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Marlon. Appreciate it. Chat soon.
Take care.
Okay. Thanks.